Hello everyone, welcome back to GeoPod. I decided to record another clip today, given the ongoing developments within the Israel-Iran conflict. Think of this clip as an update slash strategy breakdown. Over the course of this clip, I will be discussing the strategies of both Israel and Iran, as well as lay out some of my favorite strategies, especially on the side of Israel, how to fully address and eliminate the main threats Iran constitutes. So the war's been going on for a couple of days now, and I'm saying war because I do feel that it's going to escalate more and more. Israel doesn't seem to be keen on ending the aerial campaigns targeting Iran anytime soon. So we're probably looking at a higher probability of escalation rather than the probability of de-escalation. So there are already quite a number of lessons that we can derive from the events of the past few days. What we have seen is that Israel, with great efficiency, has been able to target not just Iran's nuclear program, but also Iran's chain of command. They have come after generals, they have come after commanders pertaining not just to the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, but also to the Artesh, to Iran's regular conventional units. Obviously, apart from the nuclear scientists that they have taken out. Apart from that, they have been able to neutralize a vast array of missile launch sites, a vast array of aerial defensive systems, which has allowed them to gain air superiority over Western Iran and Tehran, which is obviously incredibly significant. And just to help you all understand how significant this is, think of it as Russian fighter jets flying unopposed over the skies of Paris or London. That image is what's currently happening within Tehran. So obviously this stands as a very dire development for the Iranian regime and a very fortunate development for the Israeli armed forces, given the fact that they pretty much now can strike the entirety of Tehran with impunity. The city, the capital of the Iranian regime, is at their mercy. That is what it comes down to. And in many circumstances, that can already be cause enough to surrender, to forfeit any continuous fighting. However, given the objectives that Israel state it adheres to, I believe the Ayatollah regime still seems some sort of opening to retaliate or to do at least some damage or to close the gap that currently exists in terms of military capabilities between the two sides. So let's stick with Israel for a moment here. Like, what is Israel's intended strategy? Well, on the previous clip I recorded, I already pretty much outlined the fundamentals of it, right? Israel is trying to neutralize Iran's nuclear program to the furthest extent possible, as well as their ballistic missile defense program, which actually goes hand in hand. But at the same time, they want to disintegrate the chain of command of Iran's government frameworks and its armed forces. And for me, this is where the greatest achievements can be had, right? Because if we're taking a look at the nuclear program, at the ballistic missile program, all of these projects are children, let's say, of the Ayatollah regime, right? Without the Ayatollah regime, those two programs wouldn't pose the threat that they pose as of this moment in time. So if you truly want to cut off the head of the snake, the fall of the Ayatollah regime should be your top priority in many ways. Obviously, when we're talking military objectives, yes, the ballistic missiles Iran has at its disposal form the greatest threat to Israel's security as of right now. And this is evident by the retaliatory efforts Iran has initiated in recent days, right? They almost entirely consist of long-range strike packages consisting of cruise missiles, ballistic missiles, and UAVs, unmanned aerial vehicles, or drones. So obviously, that is the bulk of Iran's teeth, let's say. Their conventional forces, their ground forces, their naval doesn't really pose a threat as of this moment in time. And it will be difficult to pose a threat to Israel given the vast distance between the two countries. And obviously the Mediterranean waters and the waters of the Arab Gulf states in between them. So yes, the ballistic missiles do pose a dire threat to Israel. And Israel, as of this moment in time, is depleting their long-range capabilities severely. And we can already see that by the retaliatory efforts of Iran, right? Every day, less and less rockets are being fired, and they're trying to compromise for that by utilizing drones or calling upon their proxy networks, primarily the Houthis in Yemen, who still stand relatively strong in comparison to, let's say, Hamas or Hezbollah, who have been left decimated by Israeli efforts in the last couple of years. So obviously Israel wants to take away the fangs of Iran and then potentially come after the head of the snake. And the reason why I believe that this is on their list of priorities is their target acquisition of yesterday. They began targeting oil fields and civil energy infrastructure, which obviously, according to the Geneva Convention, is forbidden. However, let me explain to you why Israel is targeting these targets. A very long time, the Iranian people have been disgruntled by the ongoing energy crisis within Iran and the regime's failings to properly address it. This has caused a huge rift between the regime and its population. And there have been protests, there have been arrests, there has been ongoing turmoil relating to said crises. So obviously what Israel hopes to do is, by aggravating the crisis, it hopes to further to surge the desperation within Iran's population so that they may hopefully rise up against an already weakened regime, left obviously degraded in the wake of Israelis' targeted campaigns against them. So that is another priority that I see Israel is trying to achieve, an objective that Israel is trying to achieve. And this is, in my opinion, should be one of their top priorities. We have to understand that as long as the Ayatollah regime remains in power, Iran is going to pose a threat, not just to Israel, not just to the Middle East, but to the entire global security framework. Especially given the fact that Russia relies hugely on Iran for its continuous war effort within Ukraine. So if you take away Iran from the equation, Russia will suffer greatly, will suffer the results for that as well, right? It will be much harder for them to produce the drones and ballistic missiles at an extent and at a rate that they've been doing thus far. So obviously this will take away from their own efficiency further within the theater that is Ukraine. So as a matter of fact, the West should be incredibly pleased by Israeli efforts going on right now and should not scrutinize the Jewish state whatsoever, because whatever is going on right now on the ground in Iran is in the best interest of the Western world and in the best interest of global security and prosperity in general. And this is being attested by the fact that many Gulf states, as well as Saudi Arabia and also Israel's neighbor Jordan, have aided the Israeli regime in countering the ballistic missile volleys of Iran. So obviously they see a lot of positivity in these developments as well, especially for the region. Neither Jordan nor Saudi Arabia can afford a nuclear Iran, especially not with their proxies running rampant all around them. So obviously these states have a stake in a swift and decisive Israeli victory here. Now, let's take a look at what the strategies Iran has adhered to these past couple of days. Well, in all fairness, it isn't much. They've relied upon volleys of long-range strikes, like I said before, consisting of cruise missiles, ballistic missiles, and drones. None of which thus far has damaged military infrastructure. Some of which have been able to bypass Israel defensive measures, but the damage is solely confined to apartment complexes, some loose buildings here and there, and some streets in civilian areas far removed from any military infrastructure. So as of right now, one can come to the conclusion that Iran thus far has utterly failed to damage Israel militarily. And let me say something else, guys. When it comes down to Iran, and this is true for Russia and to a lesser extent China, because they haven't really been engaged in open warfare, they have a tendency to exaggerate their efforts as a means to project power. As I've said in some of my earlier videos, those who lack sufficient power often feel the greatest need to project it. And this is especially true in the cases of both Iran as well as Russia. So please be wary of any information that reaches your ears that come either straight from Iran or other compromised sources such as Al Jazeera, the Middle Eastern Eye. The Middle Eastern Eye is probably the worst among them. The Indian Times also has a very poor credibility reputation. So please double check. Take your information, draw your intelligence from verified sources. In my opinion, the best among them are strategic institutes who have immediate access to geospatial data and intelligence sources. So please check them out and get yourself properly informed rather than misinformed. Now, what can Iran do here, apart from launching volley after volley until their stockpiles are either obliterated or depleted? Well, the answer is not much. When we're talking about Iran's Air Force, and I've said this before, their Air Force is in no way, shape, or form competitive to Israel's. Their Navy, again, the best thing they can do, or rather the most strategically sound thing they can do, is close the Strait of Hormuz. However, this will most probably prompt a more aggressive response from the United States, who also has numerous naval assets within the region, and who can't allow global trade to suffer further, especially since the Houthis have already relied upon similar strategies over the course of the past 2 years. So their Air Force is more or less redundant in this case, as is their Navy, their ground forces as well, given the fact that the distance between Israel and Iran is quite vast. And especially now, given the fact that they've lost their foothold in Syria. So there isn't really much Iran can do here other than launch volleys upon volleys of missiles. There is something about the missiles that I want to address here, and that is that I've been reading through some of the posts and comments on social media platforms, and especially those pertaining to whether or not Iran has hypersonic missiles at its disposal. So let me clear this up for you guys real quick. Theoretically, Iran has 2 hypersonic missiles at its disposal, the Fatah 1 and the improved version, the Fatah 2. These were revealed some years ago, and they have an alleged speed of between 12 and 15 Mach. So obviously everything after Mach 5 is considered hypersonic speed. Their hypersonic missiles, the Fateh 1 and Fateh 2, are alleged to be able to reach Mach 12 and Mach 15. However, numerous Israeli officials, both within the armed forces as well as within the intelligence community, have contested this and said that no, Iran doesn't have hypersonic capability at all. Like the competency of their missiles is incredibly overrated, and nothing that they launch at us is not in our capability to neutralize. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that these missiles are not hypersonic, and that brings me to my next point, because here's the thing. Israel actually has the capability to intercept hypersonic ballistic missiles, and is currently the only country with said capability. And the sole system that is capable of doing this, is the Arrow family system of missile defense, the Arrow 2 and Arrow 3 respectively. Now, the Arrow 2 focuses more on intermediate range ballistic missiles. Now, the interceptor missiles of the Arrow 2 can reach speeds from Mach 5 to Mach 9, which already makes them hypersonic missiles. The Arrow 3, however, can reach speeds from Mach 12 up until Mach 17, the Arrow 3 being more geared towards intercontinental ballistic missiles, as well as, and it also can be utilized as an anti-satellite weapon. So yes, perhaps Iran does have hypersonic missiles, but also yes, Israel does indeed have the capability, or at the very least has the systems to take out hypersonic ballistic missiles. And they have done so before in both April 2024 as well as in October 2024, when Iran first attacked them with long-range strike packages. So just to clear that up here. Another thing that I want to clear up is Israel's ability to strike underground targets. Many Western media platforms have repeated time and time again that it will be very hard for Israel to completely destroy Iran's nuclear weapons program, given the fact they do not possess bunker buster ammunition. Wrong. They do possess bunker buster ammunition. However, the real question is the bunker buster ammunition that Israel possesses strong enough to target the underground facilities of Iran? And that's the real question. So the main bunker buster ammunition that Israel possesses is the GBU-28. So this is a lighter version of the GBU-57, which is currently one of the United States' most heaviest bunker busters and can only be launched from strategic bombers. Israel doesn't have strategic bombers. So the bunker buster ammunition that they possess is indeed lighter and obviously can be delivered by their fighter jets, namely the F-15 Strike Eagle and the F-35 respectively. So the bunker buster ammunition that Israel possesses can reach a maximum depth of 50 meters on the ground. That is not taken into consideration concrete fortifications or whatnot. Now, especially the facilities in Fordo, and I believe in Estefan province as well, are rumored to be at least 70 feet below ground. So yes, according those targets will be very difficult, if not impossible, to damage or render inoperable with the bunker buster ammunition that Israel currently has at its disposal. However, the Natanz facility is mostly above ground, and most of their critical infrastructure and critical centrifuges are above ground, or at the very least are in proximity of these bunker buster ammunition bombs that Israel does possess. So yes, Israel can indeed penetrate underground targets. Yes, they can severely damage Iran's nuclear weapon program. Will they be able to completely eradicate it? Probably not, or at the very least, not swiftly and not without some creative strategizing around their aerial efforts, let's say. Or obviously the United States can just help them in their efforts, wait for Israel to lay waste to all of Iran's air defenses, topple the Iranian regime, and then they will sweep in with their bombers and take out what's left. That's also very probable, and that might also still occur. So yeah, this is just me going over the strategies that I see are being employed by both Iran and Israel respectively. As I've said before, Iran really finds itself with their back against the wall, especially given the fact that Israel said that they were only just beginning, that there's much more to come, and that their future efforts will pale in comparison and in efficiency compared to the efforts they have executed thus far. So I see Iran just being further and further degraded militarily. The chain of commands will probably wither further and further, will be depleted, will wreak havoc among their own ranks. And perhaps it will entice the Iranian people to rise up. However, as of this point in time, in my opinion, that still remains very unlikely. Another thing that I wish to do in this clip was just clear up some of the misconceptions, some of the misunderstandings regarding Iranian missiles as well as Israel's military capabilities. And obviously, just for me, that's very important, guys. Like I said, the truth and proper, actionable and credible intelligence should be held in the highest regard and should be protected at all costs, especially in a conflict that's moving very rapidly, where new developments are occurring every couple minutes or so, especially given the fact that there are a lot of spreaders of disinformation, of propaganda active on social media platforms. It's very important for us to keep our wits about us and derive our intelligence from credible sources. I thank you very much for taking the time to listen to this clip. I will keep posting updates as long as this conflict develops. So please stay tuned and I will keep you all posted. Once again, thank you very much for listening to this clip. If you have any questions for me, you know the drill. Leave them in the comment section down below or reach out to me on one of my numerous social media platforms. I wish you all a blessed day. Thank you.